This is the return of service from the town sergeant. In New Shoreham, on the 20th day of July 2020, I have notified and warned the electors of said town of New Shoreham of the time when and place where said special financial town meeting is to be holden and of the business to be transacted therein, by posting written notification of said meeting in the following public places in New Shoreham, to wit, one at Town Hall, one at Island Free Library, one at Block Island Grocery. Thomas Durden, Town Sergeant. Zoom is online at this time. Warning for town meeting, State of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations, County of Washington, by the town clerk of the town of New Shoreham, Rhode Island, to the town sergeant of the town of New Shoreham, or any of the constables of the town. Greeting. Pursuant to Chapter 3 of Title 45, you are hereby required to post at least 7 days before the 27th day of July AD 2020, written notifications in 3 or more public places in said town of New Shoreham, Rhode Island, notifying and warning the electors of the town of New Shoreham, qualified to vote upon any proposition to impose a tax or for the expenditure of money, to assemble in town meeting at the Block Island School in the central part of the town of New Shoreham on Monday, the 27th of July, AD 2020 at 7 p.m. for the purpose of ordering a tax to be levied and assessed on the rateable property of the town and the inhabitants thereof for the payment of the town debts and interest, for the payment of the town's proportion of the state tax, for the support of schools, for the support and maintenance of the poor, for the building, repairing, and amending of highways, for the building, repairing, and amending of bridges, for the improvement in any manner deemed fit of any property belonging to the town, for all necessary charges and expenses whatsoever arising within the town, whether incidental or not to the above, and also to consider the following. First item, a motion would be in order to authorize the town treasurer of said town, pursuant to Chapter 45-12-2 of the Rhode Island General Laws, to issue and refund from time to time general obligation bonds and notes or other evidence of indebtedness in an amount not to exceed $8 million to finance engineering, construction, equipping, deployment, and initial operation of a municipal broadband network for Block Island. The terms and conditions of such bonds, notes, or other evidence of indebtedness to be set by a resolution of the town council or by the town treasurer and the first warden in the absence of such a resolution. May I have a motion? Moved. Seconded. Amy Land, our finance director, will start off.
Can everyone hear me?
Use a switch.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Sorry. I will keep this short and the meeting moving, but did want to review a few aspects of the broadband question tonight. We are here this evening partially to authorize up to $8 million to finance construction and initial startup of an island-wide fiber network connecting all homes and businesses on the island. One of the first questions is this up to. This is an up to $8 million number because one, it includes costs that will be recovered later through subscriber fees. And two, because it leaves room for every property on Block Island to subscribe. The initial calculations are based on 1,700 properties being connected. While that would be great, actually all properties will be connected, but while it would be great if everyone subscribed, we know some people may elect not to. So the actual number could be lower if not everyone chose to take service from the network. I think it's important to note that these numbers are hard numbers. We have bids in hand based on an RFP process that the town went through last fall. And it's important to note that this was a technology neutral process. So we invited fiber builders to bid. but we also invited fixed wireless and hybrid solutions and other alternative broadband solutions to respond to our request for proposals. The all fiber response that we received from Crocker and from Surtex, and that makes up the foundation of what's before you today, was in the evaluation of the committee and of the town council, both the most viable and the most cost-effective solution for connecting Black Island. In very high level terms, what does that up to $8 million mean for your representative taxpayer? Using that full amount and based on 100% subscription rate, that would translate to $23 monthly or $276 annually for a property valued at $1 million. And like most taxes, this will be wrapped in as part of the annual property tax bill that you receive from the town of New Shoreham. If you also wanted to be a subscriber on the network, you have in your packets some pricing and subscription examples. If you elected to subscribe through Crocker for voice or for internet services, that looks a little bit like this and is titled Examples of Subscriber Service and Pricing Choices. This would be the monthly type subscription fee that could replace your existing internet and or voice services. I know a lot of you have been through these materials, so I'm not going to spend too much time on the details. But there's one final point I'd like to make on, and that's to discuss why we have to decide this now. None of us wanted to gather during a pandemic in the middle of July, certainly. But the town has the opportunity now to participate in an FCC program called the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, or RDOF. And through that process, the town can secure subsidies of up to $3 million, likely between $2 and $3 million for this project, which is a very significant potential offset to those costs. When I talked earlier about that $1 million property that would see a tax impact of $23 monthly or $276 annually, moderate success in this FCC process, which we're considering something in the low $2 million subsidy range, would reduce that annual tax bill from $276 to $168. So this is a pretty significant opportunity that we felt like the town needed to try to take advantage of. And to participate, we needed to have authorization in hand so that we can bring that to the FCC in October. So thank you for coming this evening so that we can decide as a community if we'd like to move forward with this project. Thank you.
I apologize, I did not. I apologize, I did not introduce everyone up here. We have Amy Land, our finance director, Jim Kern, our town manager, Steve Marola, our town attorney, Molly Fitzpatrick, our town clerk, and we have our town council, Ken Lacoste, Andre Boudreau, Sven Rism, Chris Willie, Martha Ball. The floor is open for questions or comments. Seeing none, I call the motion. Those in favor, I will read the motion again. Motion is order to authorize the town treasurer of said town, pursuant to chapter 45-12-2 of the Rhode Island General Laws, to issue and refund from time to time general obligation bonds and notes or other evidence of indebtedness in an amount not to exceed $8 million to finance engineering, construction, equipping, deployment and initial operation of a municipal broadband network for Block Island. The terms and conditions of such bonds, notes, or other evidence of indebtedness to be set by a resolution of the town council or by the town treasurer and the first warden in the absence of such a resolution. Those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Thank you. Those opposed to the motion, please raise your hand. The motion carries. That's great. Next item is a motion would be in order to receive and act upon the town treasurer's report of the receipts and expenditures of said town for the fiscal year 2020. May I have a motion? Moved. Seconded. Finance Director Amy Land, again.
Sure. The treasurer's report for the year ending June 30th, 2020, I believe starts on page 13 of your packet. And I'm going to focus just on the first page for a minute, which is a summary. As you might imagine, this has been a challenging year for the town, and we're currently projecting a deficit of $700,000.
I just want to remind everybody, if you're leaving, please maintain social distancing on your way out the door. Thank you.
While this was certainly an unexpected position that we found ourselves in 3/4 of the way through the year, we do believe that it's manageable, and together with the budget in front of you for fiscal year 21, believe that the town can still maintain a solid financial footing in the light of significant revenue losses. I'm happy to take specific questions on the treasurer's report, but
Are there any questions or comments on the treasurer report for the fiscal year 2020? As there are none, I will call the motion. Motion is in order to receive and act upon the town treasurer's report of the receipts and expenditures of said town for the fiscal year 2020. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, please raise your hand. Motion carries. Motion to be in order to receive and act upon the superintendent's report for the school district for the fiscal year 2020. May I have a motion? Moved. Seconded. Questions or comments? As there are none, I will call the question. Motion is to receive and act upon the superintendent's report for the school district for the fiscal year 2020. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Motion to be in order to receive and act upon the medical center report by the Block Island Health Services for the calendar year 2019. Moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments on this item? Ken Lacoste would like to speak.
Ken, number four. Number four. Or the old number 4. Who's speaking? On 4? Oh, okay. Yeah.
You put it on? Yeah. 1, 2, 3. That's 4. That's 6. One moment. 1, 9, 8, 3. Try 3.
Try 3?
Yeah, stop here for now.
It's 5. It's number 5.
Number 5?
I counted wrong. It's 5.
Thank you, Doug. Just to reassure you, I've tested negative for COVID in 2 different times in the last 4 days. So don't worry about me, Doug. I just like to take this opportunity, being in the situation that we're in. I'm not sure we're going to be in this situation, having so many people in the same room later in the summer, to have a moment of remembrance and a moment of thanks and a moment of joy for Linda Kloster's retiring at the end of the summer. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank her for all she's done for the community, all the love she's given, all the time and hard work she's put in. We're going to miss her a lot, but we hope she has time to enjoy all her grandkids and get some joy out of life. And I just want to take the opportunity while we're all here to thank her. So thank you, Linda.
No questions or comments, right? As there are none, I'll call the motion is to receive and act upon the medical center report by Block Island Health Services for the calendar year 2019. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, please raise your hand. Motion carries. A motion would be in order to receive and act upon the Block Island Housing Board report for the fiscal year 2020. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or questions on this item? Any questions? As there are none, I'll call the question. Is to receive and act upon the Block Island Housing Board report for the fiscal year 2020. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Those opposed, please raise your hand. The motion carries. Motion to be in order to receive and act upon the Block Island Land Trust report for the fiscal year 2020. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or questions? As there are none, I will call the motion, which is to receive and act upon the Block Island Land Trust report for the fiscal year 2020. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Motion would be in order to receive and act upon the annual operating capital budget approved by the town council and presented by the town manager for fiscal year 2021. Moved and seconded.
Doug?
Jim Kern would like to open the remarks.
I'll be brief. I did want to give the gathering here tonight an understanding of quickly how we got here today and a little bit of preview of where the town is going over the next year, because what is being managed financially by the leadership in the town and the residents in the town is going to be much more than a one-year process. By any measure, this is an extraordinary year. In some ways, I think, and I've repeated this a few times in recent meetings, the position of the town with respect to how much reserves they had going into this should be two messages. One, how unexpected occurrences can come along in the least expected times. Right, we were economically doing just fine. That's why they call them unexpected. But also the value of having those reserves. The budget process, as you know, starts back in the fall. It usually concludes in mid-May. We're now in July, authorizing the budget for the fiscal year that we're in, which is 2021. That budget that we first presented to the council was already rather constrained. It's constrained by statute in terms of the levy increase. And most of the increase was associated with a contracted, in most people's view, overdue effort to bring employees to a comparative level with their contemporaries, and some critical expenses and some capital expenses funded primarily from an infrastructure fund separate from the normal revenue sources and constrained in how they can be spent. That budget, as I said, was rather constrained and was being done somewhat creatively, and that was before the economic difficulties coming from the virus. Any municipal or state government is going to struggle over the next couple of years. We have more flexibility, and that if there's one message I would send is to try to retain that flexibility. The last thing you want in a difficult year is to be boxed in. And I think the budget that we put together does provide some flexibility, but as Amy said, revenue shortfall in the previous fiscal year, which ended June 30th, on the order of 700,000. We won't know until the final accounting. Similar order of magnitude for the present year. So for a community with a budget of 15 million, your shortfall between those 2 years is almost 10% of that. And because of the reserve position that you were in, your reserves have dropped from roughly 17% to right around 10%. And as I said, that's a good news, bad news, mostly good news story. Couple of other things I wanted to mention. The first budget had a 3.2% increase to the schools. The second budget, after we reworked it, was a 2% increase. Anybody involved in this budget, anybody who puts money in or receives money from it has been affected. We had already pretty much level funded most all of the community groups, and the sacrifices are being made by everyone. It is a very difficult job that the people up here have to do, and there isn't any of the requests that aren't worthwhile. At some point, it becomes a process of choosing what we can afford as a group. Lastly, the changes that we made before that first budget in the winter and spring to where we are now, just under 30% was being more aggressive with revenue projections. There's a risk to that because if they don't come in, you need some flexibility there. Use of reserves that I've spoken of, that was about 30%. So 60% didn't come from reducing the budget, operational or capital budget at all. 12% was reduction in capital. You need to be careful reducing capital, but that's one of the things you do in a difficult year. And so we're up to almost 70%. The rest of it was primarily reductions to contractual and non-contractual increases and their associated benefits. So never a pleasant job to reduce budgets like that. As Amy said, we think we positioned the community for reasonable flexibility and viability into the next year. But I think we also need to keep in mind that even these projections assume a certain amount of revenue that is still at risk. We all know how that might go. We all hope it doesn't, both in terms of the health concerns and the financial concerns. But something to pay attention to and be aware of as you consider this budget and next year's budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. The first department is administration. A motion would be in order to approve $1,430,619 for administration. I heard it moved, seconded. Are there any questions or comments?
Doug, I can-
I don't know, because I took my book apart.
Where are we?
Sure. If you want to follow along in the narrative, which is the Word version, you're going to look on page 56 of your packet. If you prefer to follow the numbers, we are starting with administration, which is page 74 of your packet.
Thank you. I'll give you a minute to find it. Okay, are there any questions and comments on this item? As there are no questions or comments, I'll call the question, which is to approve budget of $1,430,619 for administration. Those in favor, please raise your hands. Those opposed? The motion carries. Next motion would be in order to approve budgeting of $404,837 for finance. I heard a moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments on this item? As there are none, I will call the question, which is to approve $404,837 for finance. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Next, a motion would be in order to approve $310,882 for fire, rescue, and emergency management. Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussions on this item? As there are none, I'll call the question, which is to approve $310,882 for fire, rescue, and emergency management. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Motion to be in order to approve $1,128,350 for police. Moved and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion on this item? As there are none, I will call the question to approve $1,128,350 for police. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Motion to be in order to approve $943,594 for highways and maintenance. Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? As there are none, I'll call the motion to approve $943,594 for highways and maintenance. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The motion carries. Motion to be in order to approve $582,709 for harbors. Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? As there is none, I'll call the question to approve $582,709 for harbors. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. A motion be in order to approve $300,204 for the building official. Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion on this item? As there are none, I'll call the motion to approve $300,204 for the building official. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The motion carries. Motion would be in order to approve $374,077 for recreation. Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? As there is none, I'll call the question to approve $374,077 for recreation. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The motion carries. Motion to be in order to approve $516,458 for the library. Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? As there is none, I'll call the question to approve $516,458 for the library. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The motion carries. Motion to be in order to approve $327,480 for GIS technology. Moved in. Was there a second? Seconded. Any questions or discussion on this item? As there is none, I'll call the motion to approve $327,480 for GIS technology. Those in favor, raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Motion to be in order to approve $192,663 for boards and commissions. Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Yes. I can't hear. I don't know if anybody can hear. Do you want to come up and use this mic or yell? Well, you got to use the mic because people are outside too. Thanks. Thank you, Rob.
My name is Rob Gilpin. I'm chairman of the North Light Commission. And unfortunately, this year, we are unable to open our lighthouse because both of our attendants are in their 60s and they take care of people with compromised immune systems. So we all felt it was best that the lighthouse be closed this year. The motion I'm making is to take the money that would have spent on the wages and move it into the North Lights Maintenance Fund, which is for years have been sorely underfunded and has relied mainly on the labors of volunteers. I also would like to take the time now to notify the council that I will be resigning at the end of this fiscal year, at the end of this year. I hope to work with a new town manager to make the transition smoothly. I've been at this 30 years. I'm tired, and it's time for someone else to pick up the torch. So my motion is to move the funds from wages so we can properly take care of the North Lake.
So in terms of the bottom line impact to the motion on the floor, which is for $192,663, there would be no change, but we can make that amendment if it were to pass to the line items underneath.
Line item later.
So we would make an adjustment within the line items if the motion were to pass, but your dollar amount remains the same.
Okay. So the effect of the motion is to redistribute. It will not change the dollar amount of what we're voting on, but it will change where that dollar amount will be spent. And instead of going to wages, it will go towards maintenance of the North Lake. Thank you, Rodney.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Those in favor of the motion? I'm sorry. The motion is to approve. Come on, I forgot to check the one. Which one am I? 40? I'm sorry, I'm out of order. The amendment, there's an amendment on the floor made by Robbie Gilpin. And the amendment is to not change the dollar amount, but it is to redistribute the wages so it'll become part of the North Light maintenance. Is there any discussion or questions on the amendment item? As there are none, I will call the question. Those in favor of redistributing the funds from wages to North Light maintenance, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Okay. The amendment carries. So are there any other questions on the rest of the question? And a motion to be in order to approve $192,663 for boards and commissions with the amendment that labor for the North Light, wages for the North Light shall go towards North Light maintenance. Those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. And I want to thank Robbie Gilpin too, because back in ancient history, when I was on the council, he was working on the lighthouses, and that lighthouse wouldn't be there if Robbie Gilpin wasn't doing everything that he's done over all these years. Thank you, Robbie. Next, a motion would be in order to approve $694,269 for community support. Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? As there are none, I'll call the question to approve $694,269 for community support. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Motion to be in order to approve $5,172,384 for school support. Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? As there is none, I'll call the question to approve $5,172,384 for school support. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. We don't have to approve $0 for grants, do we, Amy? Next is capital tax. Motion would be in order to approve $468,000 for capital tax. Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Amy?
There are two items that I would call your attention to, or 2 points. The first is that you'll notice 3 of those capital tax projects have been boxed in. That identifies that the funding for those are through the infrastructure fund, as the town manager alluded to, and not currently through the tax base. As we think about future planning, we're going to need to continue to build that capital budget back up to a more appropriate, robust level. But the goal here was to try to continue some of that work using funds that we had previously set aside. In that vein, the town council and members of the fire department met last week to discuss the number of financial and operating needs of the department, both short-term and long-term. And they're going to continue those discussions into the fall. There was consensus last week that the council would support and can provide funding to immediately address the structural concerns around the fire barn and move towards long-term planning for the repair and/or replacement of that building. And so on behalf of the council and in light of that discussion, I would make a motion to add $75,000 to the capital tax in support of building repairs and engineering for the fire barn, for a total capital tax expenditure of $543,000. The additional $75,000 to be funded also from the infrastructure fund.
That is your amendment. Is there a second? Any questions or comments on the amendment? The amendment, oh, yes. I can't see.
Number 2.
Just for the benefit of the people here, Kirk, can you give us an explanation of exactly what's wrong with the fire barn? Because as it was explained to me, that front wall is more or less free swinging. So I support it, but for clarification and further clarification, can you explain what's wrong?
The whole front wall, when you open the doors, where the trucks go in and out, moves about 8 to 10 inches. It's been an ongoing thing since about 2001. So we get a good hurricane, that building's coming down, you got about $5 to $6 million worth of equipment that's owned by the town inside it.
That's pretty clear. Any questions? Further questions? And I'll call the amendment, which is to increase capital tax by $75,000 for fire department building. Those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Okay, we now have an amended motion of $542,000 for capital tax. Are there any other questions or comments? I'm mistaken. I'll blame that on my ears. The motion before you is to approve $543,000 for capital tax. If there are no questions or comments, I will call that question. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Motion carries. Motion be in order to approve $2,394,683 for debt service. Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? As there are none, I'll call the question is $2,394,683 for debt service. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? We go back to the main motion, which is to approve the annual operating capital budget approved by the town council, presented by the town manager for fiscal year 2021 of $15,316,210. That motion's already on the floor. We just have to vote on it. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Next, a motion be in order to read and act upon the resolution pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 44-5-8 concerning the levying of taxes. Resolved that the electors of the town of New Shoreham qualified to vote upon any proposition to impose a tax or for the expenditures of money in town meeting legally assembled, that the assessment and collection of tax be made on the rateable real estate and tangible personal property of said town for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, in a sum of up to $10,817,758. Said tax for expenses and charges and sinking funds for the payment of interest and indebtedness in whole or in part of said town and for other purposes authorized by law. The tax assessor shall assess and apportion said tax on the inhabitants and rateable property of said town as of the 31st day of December AD 2019, midnight, according to law, and shall, on completion of said assessment, date and certify and sign the name and deliver it to and deposit the same in the office of the town clerk on receipt of said assessment. Shall forthwith make a copy of the same and deliver it to the town treasurer, who shall forthwith issue and affix said copy or warrant under her hand, directed to the collector of taxes of said town, commanding her to proceed and collect said tax of the persons and estates liable therefor. Said tax shall be due and payable on or between the 15th day of August AD 2020 and the 30th day of September AD 2020, and all taxes remaining unpaid on said last named day shall carry until collected a penalty at a rate up to 18% per annum upon such unpaid tax, and or said tax may be paid in quarterly installments. The first installment of 25% on or before the 15th day of August AD 2020, and the remaining installments as follows: 25% on the 15th day of November AD 2020, and 25% on the 15th day of February AD 2021, and 25% on the 15th day of May AD 2021. If the first installment or any succeeding installment of taxes is not paid by the end of the grace period established for each quarterly installment, said grace period end dates herein established as September 30th, 2020, November 30th, 2020, February 26th, 2021, and May 28th, 2021, respectively, they shall carry until collected a penalty at the rate of 18% per annum, including the grace period, provided, however, any property tax due in an amount not in excess of $100 shall be payable in full between the 15th day of August and the 30th day of September 2020, and the quarterly installment provisions herein before permitted shall not apply. And be it further resolved that the collector of taxes shall collect and pay into the town's treasury as the same is collected, the tax this day ordered. This is a true copy of a resolution passed by vote of the electors of the town of New Shore at a financial town meeting July 27, 2020. Fiona Fitzpatrick, Town Clerk. Any questions? Amy?
Just, this is as much for everyone else's information as identifying a small change, which is obviously we're levying taxes today, and we're used to that due date of the first quarter being August 15th. In this tax resolution, you will see that the grace period has been extended for that first quarter payment. The recommendation is to extend that until the 30th day of September. So the due date will remain August 15th, but the grace period would extend until September 30th, since obviously this is all very late in our typical process.
Thank you, Amy. Are there any questions? Those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Motion would be in order to approve, resolve that the town treasurer is hereby authorized with the consent and approval of the town council by resolution to borrow from time to time in anticipation of taxes such sum or sums of money as shall be necessary for the payment of the current liabilities and expenses of the town, and to issue a negotiable promissory note or notes of the town therefore. The total amount of notes issued shall not exceed the limits prescribed by section 45-12-4 of the general laws as amended. Some so borrowed during the current fiscal year commencing July 1, 2019 and ending June 30, 2020 shall be borrowed in anticipation of taxes assessed as of December 31, 2018. And some so borrowed during the subsequent fiscal year but prior to the next annual financial town meeting shall be borrowed in anticipation of taxes assessed as of December 31st, 2019. The notes issued pursuant to this authority shall be signed by the town treasurer and countersigned by the first warden of the town council, and such counter signature shall be conclusive evidence to all holders of such notes of the consent and approval of the town council, the loan evidence thereby. All terms and conditions of such notes and the method of sale thereof not fixed herein or by provisions of law may be fixed by the town council. The town treasurer is hereby authorized with the consent and approval of the town council to renew such notes from time to time, but any such renewal note shall be due not later than 1 year from the date of the original notes so renewed. Are there any questions or comments? Those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Motion to be in order to authorize the town treasurer of said town with the consent and approval of the town council to place investments as deemed proper and to open or close bank accounts as necessary for the general fund, enterprise funds, and proprietary funds of said town, consistent with any investment policy adopted by the town. Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? As there is none, those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Motion to be in order to authorize the town treasurer of said town with the consent and approval of the town council to issue refunding bonds in order to refund all or part of any public improvement or general obligation bond that would result in savings to the town. Length of term of said bond to be the minimum required, the same or lesser in time duration. The terms, details, and conditions of such bonds to be set by a resolution of the town council. Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? As there are none, I'll call the motion. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Motion be in order to authorize the town treasurer with the consent and approval of the town council by resolution and the Board of Sewer Commissioners, pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 45-12-4.3, to issue notes in anticipation of sewer service charges, such sum or sums of money to an amount which, together with any money borrowed in anticipation of such revenues in any prior fiscal year that remains unpaid, shall not exceed an aggregate 80% of the total amount of those revenues due or expected to be received during the fiscal year as estimated by the town treasurer, or $400,000, whichever is less. Such funds shall be used for payment of the current liabilities and expenses of the sewer commission for the cost of repairing and operation of such sewage disposal system. Negotiable notes issued pursuant to the authority hereof shall be signed by the town treasurer and countersigned by the first warden of the town council and the chairman of the board of sewer commissioners to the loan or loans evidenced thereby. All the conditions of said note or notes and the method of sale thereof, not fixed herein, or by provisions of law, may be fixed by the town council, and if not so fixed, then by the town treasurer. The town treasurer is hereby authorized and empowered, with the consent and approval of the town council and the board of sewer commissioners, to renew any such notes from time to time, provided that the period from the date of an original note to the maturity of any note issued to renew the same debt shall not exceed 1 year. Can I have a motion and a second? Any questions or comments? Those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Motion be in order to authorize the town treasurer with the consent and approval of the town council by resolution pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 45-12-4.3 to issue notes in anticipation of water service charges, such sum or sums of money to an amount which, together with any money borrowed in anticipation of such revenues in any prior fiscal year that remains unpaid, shall not exceed an aggregate 80% of the total amount of those revenues due or expected to be received during the fiscal year as estimated by the town treasurer, or $200,000, whichever is less. Such funds shall be used for payment of the current liabilities and expenses for the cost of repair and operation of such water treatment system. Negotiable notes issued pursuant to the authority hereof shall be signed by the town treasurer, countersigned by the first warden of the town council to the loan or loans evidenced thereby. All the conditions of said note or notes and the method of sale thereof not fixed herein or by provisions of law may be fixed by the town council, and if not so fixed, then by the town treasurer. The town treasurer is hereby authorized and empowered with the consent and approval of the town council to renew any such notes from time to time, provided that the period from the date of an original note to the maturity of any note issued to renew the same debt shall not exceed 1 year. I get a motion in a second? Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Those in favor of the, as there are none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The motion carries. Motion be in order to authorize the town treasurer of said town, pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 45-12-2, with the consent and approval of the town council, to issue and refund from time to time bonds, notes, or other evidence of indebtedness in an amount not to exceed $335,750 in order to finance capital improvements at the Block Island Water Company. The terms and conditions of such bonds, notes, or other evidence of indebtedness to be set by a resolution of the town council or by the town treasurer and the first warden in the absence of such a resolution. Moved and seconded. You want to speak? Amy Land again. Amy?
In your packets, you have a summary of the water main replacement project, and there are actually 2 questions on the warrant. This is the first. It's actually a $2.4 million project, and USDA, the town has secured through USDA a grant loan combination. So a grant will be funding 45% of that project. The balance of $1.343 million will be funded through a USDA loan. And as I said, it's broken into 2 questions. The proposal is for the taxpayers of the town, because of the critical nature of the infrastructure serving the downtown area, to fund 25% of that, or $335,750. The second question will deal with the funding of the balance of that loan, or 75% to be paid for by the water ratepayers. So this first question relates to the taxpayers portion, proposed to be $335,750.
Thank you, Amy. Any questions or comments? As there are none, I will call the question. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Motion be in order to authorize the town treasurer of said town, pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 45-12-2, with the consent and approval of the town council to issue and refund from time to time bonds, notes, or other evidence of indebtedness in an amount not to exceed $1,343,000 in order to finance capital improvements at the Block Island Water Company. The terms and conditions of such bonds, notes, or other evidence of indebtedness to be set by a resolution of the town council or by the town treasurer and the first warden in the absence of such a resolution. Moved and seconded. Amy?
We needed to be prepared for all contingencies. So we are showing here in this question the higher amount, 100% of the loan. Since the taxpayers approved the first participation of 25%, I would actually make a motion to amend this borrowing amount down to $1,007,250, which represents 75% of that loan to be paid by the water ratepayers. Correct.
Okay, so Amy is making a motion to amend this to change the amount to $1,007,250. Is there a second? Seconded. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the vote on the amendment. The amendment is to reduce the dollar amount down to $1,007,250. Those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The amendment carries. Now the main motion reads, as I read it before, the dollar amount will be $1,007,250 as we have amended it. Those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Motion to be in order to authorize the town treasurer of said town, pursuant to Chapter 45-12-2 of the Rhode Island General Law, to issue and refund from time to time general obligation bonds and notes or other evidence of indebtedness in an amount not to exceed $1 million to finance the repair, replacement, and/or improvement of town roads and bridges. Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Amy?
Sure. This is pages 91 and 92 in your packets, and actually adds to $1 million authorization that's already in place. And you can see the three areas that are prioritized: Pilot Hill, Old Town Road, and Connecticut Ave and Old Town Road. One of the reasons, again, for pushing this forward now rather than holding off is because we will likely have an opportunity with some of the other road projects that are underway on the island, particularly the water main, to realize some savings in the road work and the paving components. So that's why we put this question before you this year, even though it might seem like the kind of thing that should have waited. We have that opportunity for potential savings, and again, we didn't want to pass that up.
Thank you, Amy. Any questions or comments? Those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Motion to be in order to authorize the town council, pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 20-3-7, to enact such ordinances as they may think proper to protect and to regulate the taking of shellfish and other fish in the Great Salt Pond, and to impose penalties therefore not exceeding $200 and 3 months imprisonment for any one offense. Moved and seconded. Any questions? Those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Motion to be in order to ratify and confirm the actions of the town council in authorizing over expenditures of certain appropriations, which are due to circumstances that could not be anticipated in budget preparations for fiscal year 2020, provided that the over expenditures do not exceed the total budget amount for the fiscal year 2020. Moved and seconded. Any questions? Those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. Motion be in order to authorize the town council of the town of New Shoreham to expend grant funds applied for and awarded to the town of New Shoreham, and to the extent grant proceeds from grants exceed the amount budgeted by the town, to authorize the town treasurer with the advice and consent of the town council to expend these excess proceeds for the purposes designated in the grant. Somebody move it and second it. Did somebody move it? I didn't hear. Okay, it's moved and seconded. Any questions? Those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries. And for any and all other purposes authorized by law to transact such other business as may legally come before the meeting. Hereof fail not, but you have here this warrant at the time and place aforesaid with your doings thereon, given under my hand this 17th day of July, AD 2020, at the town of New Shoreham, Rhode Island, attested the owner Fitzpatrick, town clerk. I would just want to thank everyone who worked on this budget this year, everybody at this table, all the employees, all the department heads. I know it was a lot of work. It took a couple extra months, and these are trying times. So I just thank everybody. I don't know if anybody at the table wanted to say anything before we left.
Real quick, I'd like to thank Amy Land, Sam Bird, Michelle Spiro, Molly Fitzpatrick, and everybody else that helped set this meeting up. It's an extraordinary set of circumstances. Obviously, we needed it, and not a small effort on top of everything that Doug talked about. So thanks to everyone that contributed to that, and everybody stay safe the rest of the summer.
Motion would be in order to adjourn. Moved and seconded. We can't discuss this one, so those in favor, raise your hand. Those opposed? It carries. Thank you, everybody. Good night. Thank you all for coming. It's very important that you come. And also everyone who looked on Zoom and couldn't be here. Thank you.